Hi everybody, welcome to Small Town Big Gays. We are the aforementioned gays who are too big for how small of a town this is. I'm Chance.
And I'm Travis.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah? How was your week?
It was good. Did you do anything fun for Thanksgiving?
Nothing too crazy. Just, went to my parents' house, a very chill event, which I'm fine with. I like it. Yeah, what about you?
We went to parents-in-law's and celebrated my birthday and my sister-in-law's birthday and ate turkey, ate too much, the usual.
Yeah. Does going home or the holidays stress you out, or do you have a good relationship with your family where you're fine with it?
It stresses me out. My family is, I like my family, but I'm not super close with most of them, not in a bad way, but in just I'd rather hang out with other people who aren't my family most of the time. But the holidays just stress me out.
I will admit that because of my line of work, holidays stress me out in the fact that we get really busy, and then also I spend a lot of time around people all day long. So I usually when I have time off, I just want to kind of be alone or do the things I enjoy.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to be sitting in your living room recording a podcast with your favorite person.
No, this is the highlight of my week, truly. I do love it. It's fun.
I do have two things to talk about right up top before we get to our topic today. One is we got a name suggestion for our gay trap shooting league.
Yeah, which a lot of people are very interested in. I've had several people say they want to be in it. So I think we actually need to make this happen.
I think we do. And the name suggestion comes from Adam, friend of the pod, and it was Clay for Pay.
Oh my God, that's actually really good.
Isn't it?
Oh my God. Okay, well, I was gonna be a jerk and be it's from Adam, so it's not gonna be that good, but
no, it's pretty
that's
good.
really good.
It's pretty good.
We'll
I
take
cackled when when I saw the email.
Clay for Pay. That's actually I think that's
it. It's really good.
Yeah.
And if you have a better suggestion, you can email us at smalltownbiggays@gmail.com like Adam did. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the second thing is a minor correction up top. It was a 10-point buck with an 18-inch spread that I got when I was 12, not a 16-pointer or whatever I said. Large difference. Thank you to my brother Jake for the irrelevant fact checking.
Oh, so now we're going to not be able to believe anything you say going forward on this podcast.
No, and I'm sure this will become a regular segment of my brother, as he listens, texting me the corrections, because sometimes I just be saying shit,
Well, I am the epitome of a truth seeker and truth teller only. So
right.
I will make sure that everything that we say on this podcast is 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. No extensions of falsity.
No embellishments.
No,
nothing.
That's not really my thing.
No,
I'm just straight to the facts, straight to the point. No second guessing anything.
Licensed therapist Travis Gurrell.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this week we decided to, and by we, it's pretty much me, decided we're going to talk about religion because I think it's important. And it's I think it's a hot take in our community, and we all have different experiences. We all have different thoughts on it. And so I think one thing, just as a prerequisite to this, is that I do want to remain respectful of those, of all opinions. So whether you believe or not. So I want to go into this with a respectful conversation, not necessarily a bashing of any sort.
We're not bashing people.
No. So, and which I think you'll understand more as we get into it. But yeah, tell me about your experience with religion growing up.
I was raised Catholic, confirmed Catholic. You were confirmed Catholic too, right?
No, I'm a Lutheran.
Oh, Lutheran? Ugh. Lame. Catholics have all the good stuff. They got the cool iconography and the whole cannibalism thing, which is sick. And I'm saying that respectfully because I respect the cannibalism part. No, but I was my whole family was Catholic. My grandparents were super involved with the church, so we spent a lot of time there. I was in CCD as a kid. Do you know what that is?
Of course I do.
Yeah, it was every children's catechism doctrine or whatever. But so yeah, every Wednesday after school for years and years and years, we would go and we would have, church class after regular people school. And I was an altar boy for years too, like far longer than I should have been, to be honest, because in the Catholic Church to get confirmed, you have to have like X amount of hours like in service to the church or whatever. And so I was being an altar boy from like 12 or something, maybe younger. I'm sure my brother will correct me because we were both altar boys for way too long. I think even after we both got confirmed, we were still being asked to do services sometimes. And yeah, the frequently, because we were like altar boys all the time, like every Saturday night we were the ones up there. We would also get asked to do funerals a lot, which was my favorite thing ever because we got out of school early to go do the funerals, and then we got free food. So that was pretty sick.
Yeah, I am not surprised that the funerals were your favorite portion of that.
Yeah. Would you believe me if I told you that I cried at most of them?
Yeah.
I get really emotional when people, because I'm not like a very outwardly emotional person, so I get really emotional when I hear other people like talk about how much they like other people. Because I'm like, I don't know how to express this like a normal person.
Here comes that childhood trauma rearing its
There it
ugly head,
is.
huh?
There it is.
Okay, so would you say like overall, like from like your childhood perspective of church, did you have like a good experience? It sounds like for the most part.
Yeah, I don't think I had a bad experience. I don't have any like particular trauma with that that I can think of anyway. Maybe we'll unpack something during this episode, but yeah, I can't think of any like particular trauma I have associated with it. Even today, like I love the Catholic iconography, the fashion, honestly, is incredible. So it's put some stuff into my head that I don't think I'll ever get out. And then my personal journey, which again we'll get into, has been like when I was a kid, never really believed, super hardcore. And then when I found out the definition of the word atheism and how it would make me seem edgy, I went really hard over that and then started to get into like spooky spirituality stuff. And then it's not come full circle. I'm not a Christian by any means. But I have a lot of different thoughts about religion as a whole than I did when I was like, 18, whatever. So, well, what about you? What's your journey with all of it?
Well, you are about to learn a whole lot about me in this episode.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm very involved in church growing up. When my parents got divorced, my dad got a job at a Lutheran church here in town. But my parents never forced us to go to church. Well, actually, this is a really funny story. I'll tell you that I doubt my cousin Adam's listening to this, but if he is, this is his favorite childhood story of me, which I'll tell you in just a second. But so they never forced us to go to church. So I like willingly went. I loved going. It was a great experience. But the one time we were forced is during the short period of time when my mom moved us to Gilman, the small town I told you that we were from. We were being just like dumb, naughty kids. And my mom's like, you're going to church. And like, that was like our punishment. And so I was like, all right. And so
Great.
Yeah. So no, this is the best part. So I went that year for Halloween, I was a pirate. So I went upstairs and put on my pirate costume. And that's how I went to church that day in a full on, and it was not anywhere near Halloween time at all.
How old were you?
I was in like 5th grade. So like old enough to know better. Yeah, for sure. Like it wasn't like I was like a cute, like 4-year-old. Yeah. I was like, all right, well, I'll show you.
Take that, Mom.
Right. So yeah, I definitely went to church in a full on pirate costume, like the head thing, everything, and went. So yeah. But other than that one particular time of being forced to go to church, I went. I loved it. I got more involved like the older you get, because there's more things to do in church, I think, as you get older. But I loved volunteering for Vacation Bible School. I taught Sunday school like for many years. I was very involved in our youth group growing up. I went on all the mission trips which then led me to actually working for the mission company that we went on mission trips on through college. Yeah, I loved it. I was a big fan of church.
And this was all the Lutheran church, right?
Yeah,
Lutheran
I'm in
denomination.
Alka Lutheran, which a lot of people don't know. There's different
no
sects
idea.
within the Lutheran church.
No
so
idea what any of that means.
yeah, ELCA. In Lutheran, there's two like big sects, ELCA and Missouri Senate. Missouri Senate is much more strict, and there are a lot of times if you see like some negative things about the LGBT community within the Lutheran Church, it comes from the Missouri Senate sect of it, but the ELCA is much more open-minded. And in fact, I think growing up in my church, there were definitely queer members, but it was like very much that time of like, don't ask, don't tell, but like you knew, but
Yeah.
no one like judged them but we just didn't talk about it either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, we were the only Catholic church in town, very small town, 1,400 people. So there was the Catholic church was actually like in my backyard growing up, basically. So we just got to walk across the lawn to go to church. And then there was a Lutheran church on the other, like across the street from our house. God, I grew up surrounded by churches, didn't I? And then
Wisconsin life.
yeah, really, churches and bars. That's it, as far as the eye can see. And the only thing I really knew about Lutheran churches is that they were more chill than Catholic churches. At least the one across the street, I think, was more chill. And then our neighbors were Baptist, and they were, strict as hell. But
Yeah, I don't even think like growing up that I was aware that there was anything other than being Lutheran or Catholic. Like, I mean, that was just what I knew and had experienced. But yeah, I loved being a good old potluck and Lutheran. Loved it. Love a potluck. Love a good soup and sandwich during Lent season meal.
oh, my favorite thing was our church would do a fish fry during, is it Lent, right, where you don't eat meat on Fridays?
Yes.
I should know this. I'm a confirmed Catholic, and I don't remember any of this stuff. But yeah, our church did a fish fry on Friday nights during that season, and my grandparents always worked it. Again, they were very involved in the church, so we would go sometimes. And as we grew up, we went less and less during Lent, but it was the best fish fry. Best fish fry in Wisconsin, St. Paul's. Again, I went to this church so much, and I can barely remember the name of
Did they actually deep fry the fish?
Yes.
Okay. Because a lot of churches do like that, the boil or the broil or whatever.
Yeah. No, it
Disgusting.
was deep fried, and there was some coleslaw, and it was made by nothing but like old Wisconsinites in their like 60s, 70s, and 80s, like the oldest people. Some of them were like barely alive, I'm sure, but they make damn good fish.
Yeah, I bet. I love that for them. Actually, I think we could almost thank my church and religion for bringing this podcast to life, because without that, I would have never met my best friend Shelly at church, who is cousins to Nick, who Nick, and Nick introduced us. So
it's all due to
religion.
Shelley,
Yes.
our Lord and Savior, Shelley.
Our Lord and Savior Shelley. But yeah, speaking of which, so that's how I met my best friend, was in church youth group. And like we immediately hit it off. We we worked the nursery together a lot. So yeah, people actually put us in charge of watching their children during the church service.
I don't
Yeah.
knowing you two, I don't.
Yeah, it was as chaotic as one could imagine. We ran the nursery together a lot because it was like a volunteer thing that they needed teenagers to do, and why not? I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it was a way to like get out of being an actual church.
Yeah.
So, and you just got to sit and play games with the kids in the nursery. Like,
That's why I was fine with being an altar boy for so long, because I just got to like chill.
yeah.
You just got to like sit there.
And also you got to wear the robe and like serve cunt at the service. I loved it. Like,
That's
don't
what
give
I'm
me an
saying.
excuse to sashay across that
Yeah,
church
seriously.
altar. I loved it. Like, give me a robe anytime.
It's like wearing a dress, but manly.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the best excuse to get to wear a dress and not get picked on for it.
Yeah.
So I loved it.
You hear that, Catholics and churchgoers? If you let your kids be altar boys, altar people, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if girls can be altar people in the Catholic Church yet. They
I'm not
couldn't.
sure about that.
I don't think they could when I was younger.
Okay. In Lutheran, they could.
Maybe they could. I don't fucking know. Jake, correct me.
Yep. And I think actually as part of our like confirmation, because that's what like our CCD was confirmation. In order to do that, I believe you had to like do a certain amount of services.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think because of that, girls were required to do it too. So
Maybe they were.
I don't know.
I think they actually were at our church, but that might have just been from like sheer lack of numbers.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, small town, B Catholic church, which is like at least when I was a kid, it was declining in numbers. I actually hear that Catholic churches are increasing in numbers too, because a surprising amount of like the younger generation is starting to get more into church going.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, but
I have a theory behind that, but I feel like we'll touch base on that later on. But I think it has to do with community more than religion. But
yeah, there is a male loneliness epidemic. People
relatable.
People loneliness epidemic.
Yeah, I think like I talked about this in my stand-up class. I talk about that all the time, but I always talk about religion during my things because it was just such a big part of my life. But like, I think I feel like a lot of queer people growing up in the church, like I feel like it's a very polarizing experience. Like either they've had like a really traumatic experience where they've been condemned or like told they're wrong, or they've kind of had like I don't want to say like a place to like thrive, but like a place where you could express a lot of your things. I think about like how me being a queer person growing up in the church, like that was like my play place. Like I got to, run Vacation Bible School, like boss people around, tell them what to do. Gays love that.
You specifically love
doing that. So, took a full advantage of that. Arts and crafts time. Like, seriously, give me glitter and rainbows all day, every day. I'm all about it. Cooking. Like what gay doesn't love to like bake a cake or bake some bread?
I don't know if your church did like a fall festival or anything when you were growing up.
Sure, we did.
We used to do that, and there was a giant white elephant sale that I would help out some years. It was fan because then I got to pick out all the cool stuff, all the little jewelry.
Yeah, see, like the gay kids can really thrive in church.
Really can.
We really can if you have a good experience
yes.
and good people around you. Yeah,
which a lot of people don't, but we're lucky.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky. And like, yeah, even into like middle school and high school, as like I started becoming more aware of my sexuality, I think I don't want to say turned to church. Like I wasn't the type of kid that was like praying like, please make me different. Yeah, I never felt that because I never felt condemned at my church about it, which was really a lovely experience. But I think it helped distract me from things because it was just like something I enjoyed doing, and I liked being there. I loved helping out as much as I could. It kept me like away from home and like being bored and doing things, that I probably shouldn't have been doing. So yeah, I loved it. And my church community was really like, they really rallied around me. And it also helps that like, again, I met my best friend, Shelly, and her family there. And like, if I do say so myself, Shelly and I are pretty hysterical and pretty fun to be around.
You're
so
all
like,
right.
People enjoyed us. We did do this. We did get in trouble, like not actual trouble, but we did a lot of like really silly things at church that just to like push buttons to see what we could get away with, And one time, so our youth room, like, where like the youth hang out and do their Bible studies and stuff, we got to like make it over. So it was like really nice. And like we painted it all cool and stuff. And then like the younger kids would sneak in there and they weren't allowed in there. And so Shelly and I got like really upset. And so we wrote a sign saying like, if you're under this age, you are not permitted in without adult supervision. And then of course, like we couldn't just stop it there. We had to sign it, the big guy in the sky, which our youth director was not amused with us about. But the funniest thing we did, which I think is funny, is, so Somehow, well, not somehow, I had access to every square inch of the church because of my dad working there, and I knew every square inch of that church like the back of my hand because I was literally there all the time. I knew how to get into the church office because I knew the passcode. And, Shelly and I got, okay, a little backstory. So there used to be a Christian bookstore in town. I don't think there still is, but there used to be. And I went there and I got this, I'm going to say stuffed animal doll for lack of better terms, but it was of Jesus. And
Cool.
if you squeezed his hand, he would say different sayings that Jesus would say. And one of them was, I knew you before you were even born.
Creepy.
And yeah, but like the Jesus voice was like borderline Saw voice. So it was actually pretty terrifying. And I thought that was hysterical. So I'm like, well, let's put this to use. So Shelly and I get into the church office, get to the phone, the church phone, and also happened to just get a hold of the church directory with every member's phone number on it and started calling different members. And then when they would pick up, we would push Jesus's hand to say, I knew you before you were even born, in the Saw voice at them,
Good.
and then hang up.
Very good.
Yeah.
I knew you before. What is the Saw voice?
Yeah, I can't even do it, but you know it distinctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, could you imagine just getting like, and at that time it was landlines only, and like caller ID was a
Caller
thing.
ID is the
it's
church.
like
Oh my
St. John's Lutheran Church, and then you pick it up, you're like, hello, and it's like, I knew you before you were even born, and then click. Like,
That is terrifying.
yeah, it was pretty hysterical.
Do you think you actually tricked anyone into thinking that it was Jesus calling them, though?
No, they were probably like, that's Travis and Shelley.
They clocked you immediately.
Yeah, they just knew we were up to no good immediately. But like harmless stuff, like,
just
that's
fun.
nothing.
Just
Yeah.
some kids doing kid stuff.
Yeah, we loved it. So yeah, I like those are experiences. We would also have lock-ins. Did you have lock-ins at your church?
I vaguely recall there being one, but I don't think I went to it because I might have, but I don't think I did, honestly, because I was like, why the fuck would I sleep here? My house is right there. Like, you can see my house out of the window of the church. Why would I?
Because it's creepy and spooky and fun.
Was your
like,
church haunted growing up?
I don't. Is that a thing? Can churches be haunted?
Yes. Yes. Our church was haunted.
I think that's a spiritually conflicting thing.
No,
but
our church
interesting.
our church was haunted as shit. Oh, you want to know some stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So, my church growing up, when I was a real little kid, not like, I think I was like 5 or whatever when this happened, maybe 6, I don't know. We had one pastor. His name was Father Steve. And so our church, we had heard stories of it being haunted, and like people would sometimes like see shit in the rectory or whatever. But our first pastor that I can remember when I was a kid, Father Steve, he went a little crazy, and probably mental illness, maybe paranormal mixed with mental illness. But he killed himself.
Was not expecting that. Okay.
I don't remember the progression, but he was he was having some mental issues that may or may not have been expounded by the fact that our church was definitely haunted, and he killed himself in the hospital on his second attempt, I think. And then the pastor after that,
So he tried to kill himself twice?
I think he tried to kill himself once, and then he was in the hospital, and then if I recall correctly, he strangled himself with like an IV bag. Or that's what I was told when I was a kid.
What if all this was a lie and it never happened?
He definitely died, and he definitely killed himself, but at least
Could have been a
I'm
fun
pretty
story if it was all just a lie. Like
This
that's
might
something
just be
I
a
would
lie.
tell you
Yeah.
nowadays, and then you'd believe it and like go around and tell people it.
This is 100% true as I know it.
Okay.
Is that he, not the details, but he started to like kind of get off his rocker, and then he ended up unaliving himself, as the kids say on the TikToks.
Okay, so my question for you is, how much time has that church spent praying for him to get out of purgatory?
I'm sure so much. But you want to know the real tea?
Yes.
So the pastor after that also killed himself.
Stop it.
Seriously. He jumped in front of a car while he was in Chicago. So it was an alleged suicide, but he was apparently also going through some mental stuff. And got hit by a car in Chicago, apparently of his own accord, and died. 2 in a row.
I think we need to do a deep dive into this church.
2 in a row. Yes.
I have a lot of
I
questions.
should actually look into this because I'm just remembering now that 2 of my pastors,
Yeah, that's wild.
when I was a kid, died one right after another, and both were allegedly of their own accord.
Did you call them pastors?
No, we
Aren't
called
they
them
priests?
priests.
Priests. Yeah, 'cause
His
they-
father
pastors is a
Steve
Lutheran
and
thing, isn't it?
father. I don't remember the second one.
Yeah. Well, rip.
Father Amala Joe. That sounds correct. But then the pastor after that, he sucked. Father Sal, and then he left. And then it was Father Graham, who was fucking awesome. Loved Father Graham.
That's good.
He was a dude from Guyana, I think, and he was just so fucking nice, and he loved me. We were best friends in like a not creepy way. It was cool.
That's good. Okay. Well, I loved a good lock-in. Because again, I knew,
we were talking about lock-ins.
it's like, I knew every square inch of my church, and also this was really funny. So there was the boiler room in the church, and it had this like crazy door on it that like literally looked like it could be from a movie scene of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre door is what I always called it. And so we would always do like hide and go seek in the church when we were doing these lock-ins, and I would immediately go for the boiler room because I loved a dramatic moment of spooking the shit out of people and pulling that Texas chainsaw door open.
Sounds about right.
Yep. It was like my moment to thrive.
Where's Travis? He's in the boiler room.
They all knew that's where I was going every time, but no, everyone was so freaked out of it they'd never come find me, and then I'd always get my moment of opening the boiler room door.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, I loved a good lock-in. We also would do a lot of we had this one event called Feast or Famine, and it was to honor people who are, starving in the world and food insecure. And what we would do then is not eat for 48 hours.
I think
That's
we might have
solitude.
done a similar thing.
Isn't that just really bizarre?
Yeah.
Like I get the experiences to like understand hunger, but like, and then we would break the fast by going to Old Country Buffet.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Right? Like, see just all the great
Love Old Country
moments. Yep. And actually, this isn't a tragic story as so much as like a scandalous story that I'll tell you that I forgot about happening. So we had this thing in town called Godstock, which
Godstock.
what an iconic name, right? Honestly,
Like Woodstock, but for God.
yeah. So it was like it was at a hotel, and we rented out like the whole hotel, and it was like God, I'll just guesstimate and say like probably 300 to 500 high school students in this thing, and they had like little like things you could go to and whatever. It was fun, and all the boys had to stay in one room and all the girls had to stay in another. And I did have one of my gay awakening moments at Godstock in a hotel room. I forgot about this because I thought I didn't do anything since when I 8th grade to 18, but I did have one experience at a church event with a fellow comrade at church.
Scandal.
Yeah. Who I don't want to out his life right now, but knowing who he is would actually make it really funny to out him, but I'm not going to do that. But it'd really rock some worlds.
Yeah.
But so that was fun. And there was this point, somehow one of the things we had to do was meditate in it, which seems interesting.
Yeah.
But I was so exhausted from that weekend of getting a lack of sleep and doing naughty behaviors that I fell asleep during the meditation thing and woke up to a room of like 300 high schoolers laughing at me. But more importantly, my best friend Shelly, who did nothing to prevent this from happening, laughing hysterically, snorting, laughing at me because I was not only asleep, but snoring during this room where there's like 300 high schoolers who are completely silent. And there's my ass in the corner just snoring away.
Incredible.
Horrifying. I was I actually stopped talking to her. We got in a big fight that whole weekend because of it. It turned into a whole thing. And she replaced me with the other fat gay kid that was there. And they did a skit together for the talent show. And I was really pissed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we fought and it was a whole thing. But
You got back together, though.
the Lord brought us back together.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
But I did steal the other fat gay kid's sweatshirt because that was like my revenge of like, you tried to take my best friend, but didn't happen. And I got your really expensive American Eagle sweatshirt out of it.
Do you still have it?
No.
Damn.
No, it would be good though. I wish I did. It was a really nice sweatshirt, and that was a really terrible thing for me to do, but
he deserved it.
I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. A lot of childhood trauma. You know, it's what you do.
We had a similar thing that we went to one year, actually. I don't remember if it was called Steubenville or if it took place in Steubenville. I don't know. I just remember the word Steubenville. But it was a similar thing, but for Catholics. And it was like, it was huge. There were so many people there. We were in a hotel room, and this was thick. I must have been like 15, 16 or whatever. So this was in the thick of my emo phase, or my attempt at emo phase, because my parents wouldn't let me have an emo phase. So I had like long hair swooped over my eye. This was in the era where I wore a scarf a lot because I thought it made me emo. And also my brother and I, shortly before this, had gone to like our first concert, which was Anberlin, which he actually took my nieces, or one of my nieces, for their first concert. It was the same band, which was really cute. But the lead singer of Anberlin was wearing one of those like big, square scarves that you fold into a triangle and then like wrap around. I don't know what that's called. Yeah. But so I was wearing one of those, and I had my hair swooped over my eyes. And this was also in like the mid 2000s or whenever. So like plaid shorts were a big thing. So there's a photo out there of me like with the long swoopy hair and the dumb scarf and the plaid shorts. And I thought I was so cool. But at one point during this retreat, there must have been like 1,000 kids there. It was huge. But they put a host, the body of Christ, in a thingy, and I want to say it's called the tabernacle, but I think that's where it's stored in the church. And anyway, so it was in this big like ornate gold thing that had a little window so you could see this piece of this wafer, and they took it around this entire, it was like in a stadium, not like a huge stadium, but it was in like, a large venue. And they took it around, just walking it through the crowd. So people, it was like a worship thing, worshiping the body of Christ. And kids were fucking fainting. It was so dramatic. Wow. It was so dramatic. And then there were people like, they'd bring it towards you, and then you'd like kneel and pray or whatever. And then some people would just fucking fall over.
That's wild.
It was wild.
I love that for them though.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine being that kid like nowadays?
Well, can you imagine doing that as adults now, and how much fun that would be to like, for me anyway, of just, pretending.
Okay.
I'd have a whole moment.
We could try it.
I'd have a whole moment.
Oh, this is turning into a whole.
Well, I had to make the third camera angle worth it this week.
Okay, true. I keep forgetting that that's there. Yeah, I would have definitely taken a moment as a kid. I for sure would have fainted at that. Like, even though I didn't really, like, I would have taken my moment and ran with it at all costs.
I do recall thinking about it when I was there of like, should I go really big with this? But no, I just kind of like, okay,
cool.
We're here, aren't we?
Also, another favorite memory. I have so many things I could talk about, but another favorite memory of mine was, again, with my best friend Shelly. We came up with code names for everyone so that we could talk about them in front of their face at church. And specifically, like, the main one was my dad. We'd call him Cabbage because he was always there, and like there was no way I could like bitch about him with him being there at every moment. So we called him, he was Cabbage, and like we would literally be like, just like, I don't know, like prepping the sandwiches for like Lenten dinner that night, and I'd be like, oh my god, Cabbage is so fucking annoying. He'd be like right there, it's just like talking shit about my dad. Yeah. And we made nicknames for literally like every church member, every person in our confirmation group.
Travis and Shelly are complaining about food a lot. That's weird.
We weren't complaining about the food. We were.
I know you were, but it sounded like it.
No, we were complaining about the people while making the food.
But you were complaining about Cabbage.
Oh, yeah,
Cabbage
yeah.
is a
Okay, got it.
food.
Oh, God. Wow, that went way over my head. Yep. hmm Yeah, well, they were like, probably like, of course it's a vegetable. Those two ain't touching that. Probably all made sense in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, but did you ever go on a mission trip?
No,
Is that a thing Catholics
I
do?
don't. I mean, it is.
think it is,
in bigger churches, but again, like my CCD class had like 6 or 7 kids in it. We were versus every other church in town had like much larger groups of people. Like our church was basically dying at that point. So yeah, we didn't do any mission trippy. I think there might have been like opportunities, but no one fucking did it because we were all a bunch of kids who didn't care in, New Lisbon, Wisconsin. So
Yeah.
no.
I definitely did. Went on them every year they were offered. I did every fundraiser involved, so I didn't have to pay for them.
So like, how long were they?
So like the mission trips themselves were only like a week, and then like because we had to drive to most of the places, it ended up being gone for like 2 weeks total between like driving and times there. So
like what places?
oh my gosh, my first one we went on an Indian reservation in South Dakota. I went to West Virginia, Vancouver, Canada, which was amazing.
Cool.
And then New Orleans was my last one, and we were there like 2 weeks before Hurricane Katrina hit.
Oh damn.
Yeah, so it was pretty intense.
So what would you do like at those?
Well, we would do lots of things. There was like physical labor involved, so like we would paint homes and help clean things up. And then we would also do like, they were called kids club. This is a specific organization we went with. We do like kids clubs. So it was like basically a vacation Bible school for the kids in the community, and we'd put it on. And then we'd do like, they'd call them like evening activities. So we would do something that was like cool in the community. So like you'd go do touristy stuff and get to see the city you were in. And then we'd have like church services, and you had to like make the meals with people, but like also different churches from all over the United States would come to the same place with you that week. So like there'd be like 60 kids there, but they'd be from all over the United States.
So big social events for the kids too.
Yeah, so you got to meet other people. And also the specific one we went with was non-denominational, so there was different denominations all in one gathering. So it was definitely heavily Lutheran based, I would say, for sure. But yeah, there'd be like Catholic churches there and Baptists and non-denominational and stuff. So you got to meet kids from all over the US too, which was cool.
Do you still keep in touch with anyone you met back then?
So I had quite a few of them on Facebook when it first started, because Facebook also like wasn't a thing till after I graduated high school, really. And so like if you wanted to keep in touch with someone, you had to like actually like have a landline number or like a physical address and write them letters. That's how old I am. So I didn't keep in touch with too many of them. I still very much keep in touch with a lot of people that were like in my specific youth group from church, because a lot of them are still to this day some of my best friends.
Yeah.
But when I started working for this mission organization, which we can get into in a little bit, I was definitely friends with a ton of them on Facebook. But when I came out and started doing drag, I deleted them all because I didn't want to get any sort of negative feedback on that, because it was something I'd worked through, but have since gone back and added quite a few of them with positive experience.
Oh, good.
Which we can talk about. But yeah, loved a mission trip. Also loved doing a brat stand in order to raise money for it. Loved doing a car wash.
Did you...
Yep.
Just pressing your titties against the window.
Oh, absolutely. I lived for every moment of
really
attention
into
I could
that.
get in that church.
Yeah.
Yep. I was really great at selling brats. Was so good. Loved it.
Brilliant.
I was at everything. I was so involved in church. I loved it. Any moment I could make it about me, I certainly was there to do it.
I was like, yeah, it was mostly the altar boy thing, and my parents did force me to go to church a lot every Sunday or Saturday when we were serving. We would be there by default, so that counted. But yeah, it was pulling teeth with us because we just did not want to.
Yeah.
And it's nice. You said earlier you had like a you leaned into religion a little bit more while you were kind of discovering yourself. And I had the opposite, where as I kind of was finding out more about my own sexuality, that's when I started to really pull away. And I was never like too deep into it, but that's when I started to be like, I'm a fucking atheist. I'm agnostic. I remember when I told my parents that I'm agnostic, and they said it was a phase, because my mom is pretty heavily, not super heavily, but my stepdad is pretty heavily Catholic. So they said me being agnostic was a phase when I was like 16, and told them I was agnostic. And by agnostic, I meant atheist, but I didn't want to tell them I was atheist because I knew that they would be mad about that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all a learning curve. I think that your experience is probably much like more people will relate to than my experience of like turning to the church. But it was like such a great beard. I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I didn't want to have a girlfriend and want to be having sex with women. So like, hello,
I'm religious.
no sex before marriage. Sorry, ladies, all the people wanting it. Wasn't really an issue either. So, but yeah, no, I just like, I think, and I wanted to touch base on this more than anything, is like what I loved about it was like the community it provided. Because I didn't have like a super traditional college experience after like I didn't go live in a dorm. I didn't do any of that stuff. So, and then like also I had like, I was friendly with a lot of people in high school, but I wasn't really close with a lot of people in high school.
Yeah.
So like I lost touch with a lot of people from high school, and like it was a way to like make friends. And I definitely had a lot of imposter syndrome though while doing it all, because I, in the back of my head, like knew who I was. And, but my church growing up, I never had that experience of like ever hearing anyone say anything like negative about being queer, but like, it was just kind of a don't ask, don't tell. Like we didn't talk about it, but you knew like people probably didn't really support it. Maybe, you know, like, I don't know. And maybe I like overthought it, and maybe there was a lot more supportive people around me than I would have given chance to. But the first time I ever like experienced a true, like, I don't want to say like a hateful way, but like it was kind of like in my face, was my last contract with them, which I'd been working for them for 4 years, and the last year I did like a full year contract. So like normally it was just like a summer thing, and we would go and put on the mission trips for the high school kids all summer long. It was like 3-4 months. But they had this thing you could do that was a year long thing, and they put you in one of the communities where they like would have the kids come, and you had to like continue to foster those relationships with people. And I did mine, and actually at the same time worked in a high school art room in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had the most amazing experience that year. Like we lived in an old Catholic church, ironically.
Cool.
But the church was now ran by, I think they were non-denominational group. And there was 4 of us all together. So I had 3 roommates that lived there, and we were all from different parts of the US. And we didn't know each other prior to moving in with each other. It was just like, hey, here's your roommates for a year, have fun. And like, we lived in this old Catholic church, which was kind of creepy, but cool. And there was this little old woman named Hilda who cleaned the church, even though she wasn't paid and didn't attend the church. She just like lived nearby and would just like show up
and
and
come and clean.
And she would like do our laundry for us, like while we were gone during the day.
Well, shout out Hilda, but
yeah, she was literally my favorite thing about the entire, well, there was a lot of really great things, but one of my tops, because she hated one of the pastors of the church, which I thought was hysterical. And his name was Pastor Mike, and she hated him. And I knew that. So of course, knowing me, I had to egg that on anytime I could. And I'd be like, oh, hey, Hilda, I just talked to Pastor Mike. And she'd always be like, he ain't any more of a pastor than the devil himself. And she just hated him. Yeah, she literally. And then like they would tell her like certain things that she couldn't do. And she'd always be like, no one tells this German what the hell to do. And she would just do whatever she wanted around that building. Not even a member. Not just like.
Was she like first generation immigrant, or
No, I
she
don't
just
think
call it?
so.
She just be like, no one tells us German.
Yeah, she
one tells
didn't
us
have like a
German
strong
anything.
accent or anything. Nope, it was just hysterical. She was the absolute best. And
Queen.
yeah, me being like me just would always egg her on to say the most ridiculous shit. And like they had a clothing bank in the church too. So I had to go down there and just find the dumbest shit and just like put it on her, and she'd just walk around the day wearing the shit that I would put on her, and she just loved it. It was so great. And like they had a food bank there, and it was meant for like their church members or like when they wanted it to be open, but she found like the key to it, and she would just like go in there and grab stuff and give it to whoever she wanted. Like she just truly the best. I loved her. She was great.
And she did. So that was why she did all the cleaning and stuff for free. It's
Yeah,
just
she,
to
power.
just to cause problems.
Yeah, literally me. Me and Hilda are like we're kindred spirits for sure.
Truly.
I remember coming into it as like most of my experience growing up as a Lutheran, and it's very like traditional, it's very safe, and the church we lived in was non-denominational. And I remember we went to our first Sunday service there, and it was the first time I had ever seen someone get slain in the spirit. And then speaking in tongues.
Oh.
Yeah. So getting slain in the spirit is like basically like they're praying for you, and they use the like, I don't even know if I'm going to say this correctly, but basically like the person who's praying for you gets so overtaken by God that they can like basically cast demons
spells.
out of you, or like
Exercise.
yeah, but it was also just like to help heal you mentally, and they also believed physically.
Good.
But
That's something. Something everyone.
The craziest thing is I remember being so freaked out because I'd never seen that in my life. And like I was just, we were singing our song, and then all of a sudden there's like a guy across the room was like, and just like going crazy, and I'm like, what is happening here? I was freaked out. Then all of a sudden like someone else comes over and like starts praying on him, and he passes out and falls over, and then they just come out with a white sheet and lay it over him.
Hell yeah.
And then he just lays there till the end of the service. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'd never seen anything like that. So I was exposed to so many other like sects of religion that it was a very wild and eye-opening experience, and a lot of really cool things, like to see how other people chose to, celebrate God and that. But it was a wild time in my life as a 21-year-old kid, essentially.
I've never seen anyone speak in tongues in real life, but
It's wild.
I would love to see it now.
It's thrilling. I loved it. It was, I'm all about the theatrics and drama. So like, give me someone speaking in tongues any day of the week, and I will love it.
You talking about living like in a Catholic church, that just reminded me when I was in college in Oshkosh, there was a church that had been converted to a house. And I don't think it was a frat house, but at the time anyway, I think it was owned by one of the frat bros, like parents or something. And so a bunch of frat guys were living there. And I used to hook up with a guy inside a church converted to a house.
Love that.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I definitely, during that year living in Pittsburgh, and then like during my last contract, like I had gotten to the point with my life where like I knew that I was queer, and like I couldn't keep hiding. And my grandma had gotten really sick at this time, and that was like my safe person. And she ended up passing that year too. And I like knew I couldn't like not live my truth anymore because of that. So I was definitely, on the Craigslist a lot, in the church office.
The Craigslist personals way
Yeah,
back when.
loved them. So like I was really caught in between two worlds at that point, and it was just such like, thinking back on it, like I always like feel really weird thinking about it, because it was like I knew that these lives were going to have to like become one at some point, and I could no longer like be hiding from it. And it's such like a weird experience that I think a lot of queer people go through, of like, all right, I just know that I have to do this, and how do I get through this, and how am I going to get through this? But I did it.
You did it, and here you are.
Here I am.
So what's your relationship like with the big man upstairs now?
So I think for me, I like didn't tell this part of the story. So with my last contract, I was like a really higher up. And so I was like in charge of a lot of things, and it was just like a very small room full of people, and like one of the guys who like started this organization, and someone had, I think, asked about like what to do if one of the like students wanted to talk about being queer and whatever. And I remember his answer. I can't remember it specifically, but he basically was like, you need to turn them to God. And that's what
Ew.
it is. And it's like not your responsibility to like help them. That's God's thing. And I was just like, first of all, I would never like if like this one of these students came to me and like opened up about being queer, I wouldn't be like, you need to turn to God. You know, I'd be like, that's great, good for you. Like I never felt like I felt negatively about it with myself, but I never felt negatively about it for other people, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, no, this isn't for me. Like I can't support that. And that was like another big turning point. I was like, I'm going to finish this contract and be done with this. And yeah, then I just became a big old gay drag queen after that, very fast. Like it was like rapid fire. I finished my contract in August, went to my first drag show in September, was in my first drag show that October. Like it was that wildly fast.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So do you still consider yourself religious at all, or was it always just kind of a front? You know
No,
what I mean?
That's a good question. I have a really weird relationship with a lot of that of, for me, church was never about the religious aspect of it. It was about the communal aspect of
Yeah.
it, because I felt like I didn't get a lot of that growing up at home. Because my parents were divorced and I lived with my dad and he was busy working at the church and he owned his own business. So he was never home.
Yeah.
So I was alone a lot. So for me, it was about community versus like the actual ideology of Christianity. So I didn't have like a strong relationship with that part of it. I knew it, but it wasn't something that was important to me. So when I like came out, I thought I lost my community. So then I just like dove headfirst into queer community and like found my people and just like went for it. And I felt like I couldn't have any part of both of them.
Yeah.
My roommate at the time was one of my best friends from church. So it was like a weird juxtaposition for both of us. Like I'm sure it was hard for her, like knowing me as this church friend to now knowing this. But so there was like some weird, awkward moments, I think, for us for quite a while. But then we had a breakthrough. She came and I think it was a Fireball show, actually. She came and saw me and like was just like, I see you now for who you are. And like, I couldn't be more proud of you. And like, it really changed our relationship. So when I think of church, and how I view religion is I miss the community aspect of it. And like, I loved helping people. I like doing those community service things, but I don't miss the
God parts.
Yeah. My dad actually asked me once when we were working on, I don't know, I was helping him paint something or some crap, but my dad was like, you used to be so like involved in church and so religious, like what happened? And I was just like, had to sit and critically think about things of like, what is like the actual like Noah's Ark is always one that I really think of, like the whole thing around it. Like it's just not possible to me in my like critical thinking mind. In my spiritual thinking mind, I of course would want to believe that. Like what a great story.
What a
and,
great
like,
story.
What a great, and like I think people have to understand that like those weren't actual events that took place, but as a way that people use them to like get a point across of like, this world, we need to take care of it. We need to be kinder to the things. We need to be good to each other and good to the animals and creation.
It's called an allegory, kids.
Yeah, but they take it as
They take it literal truth.
literal truth. And that to me is just like wild, because I kind of was maybe at that point at some point in my like religious experience of like, I remember like when my grandma was passing away, like my family really looked to me as like the religious beacon. I don't know if that's the right word, but because a lot of them didn't have really like strong faith.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of times people turn to faith in hard times, which we want to be comforted. And I think that's a great thing that faith can do. But it's just wild to me that people can believe things like that,
Well, and I think that's what kind of drew me out of it. Because when I don't remember, pre like 12 years old or whatever, thinking too much about it. Like we would go to church all the time, but I never really internalized anything. And then as I started to get older, not only was me learning my sexuality part of what drove me out, and knowing not necessarily like my community doing anti-gay shit, but I remember when during the Bush years my parents had a sign in their front yard that said marriage is between one man and one woman, which maybe that's why I didn't come out to my parents.
Amen.
Amen. But the things that kept me from like getting too deep into religion at all were I knew what they thought about gay people, whether my church was explicitly saying it or not, and then B, that is what got me thinking about those kinds of things. Like, no, there wasn't a fucking boat that had two of every animal, or there wasn't a giant that this guy hit with a rock and killed. But yeah, that's what kind of kept me from getting too deep into it. And then as I got older, full-blown atheist, thinking everything religious is ridiculous. And then now as I've gotten even older, I've become a little more spiritual, not in like a Christian sense, but and then if people who know me know that I'm really into the paranormal, and that has actually not drawn me back into religion, but has drawn me into magical thinking, which incorporates a lot of religion, or religious thought that isn't that it's so fucking complicated actually that I'm gonna stop talking about it, because
I get what you're saying.
Me trying to explain my beliefs on religion and the paranormal and all of that shit and how it all intertwines it requires me yelling and being more articulate than I can probably be at any time.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get where you're going with it though. Like, I understand what you're saying, and I think a lot of people will relate to it, because I think it's kind of an awakening moment of like, how do you simultaneously I can't say the word
simultaneously.
There we go. Like, have faith and believing that there's a higher power, but also like understanding like science and facts and energies and feelings, and
at the end, like, to try to distill it down into a bite-sized piece of information. Like, people have been experiencing weird shit since the dawn of consciousness, and some of that weird shit,
which was on the sixth day that God created it,
which was a real thing, and then on the seventh day he took a nap. People have been experiencing weird shit throughout human history since we became like conscious beings, and some of that stuff has been turned into various religions throughout the years, which is why if you look at Christianity in its like purest form, and you compare it to not Islam or Judaism, because those are all the same God with different prophets, but if you compare it to like
even like Greek mythology,
Roman mythology, prior to stealing all the stuff from the Greeks, if you compare it to I'm forgetting the names of the East Asian religions, but if you compare it to different religions through different cultures, they all have similar like basis, similar phenomena that happened that spawned this religion. And so I think there's something to that. Do I think it's a higher power that like created the universe or whatever? No, but I think some weird shit happens and people experience it and interpret it in different ways, and sometimes it's a ghost, sometimes it's a Bigfoot, and sometimes it's a visit from an angel. And that is where I will leave the thoughts, because if you want to hear more about my extensive beliefs in the paranormal, I think I'll make a YouTube video yelling about it one day. But
yeah, you should, because I want to hear it.
Yeah.
We should do an episode though. Maybe, I feel like Halloween's so far away, but that we could see where this goes. But I have a lot of really interesting experiences with paranormal, and in fact, I think you would love this story, and I can tell you out of the pod sometime, because I feel like you're going to want to know it right away immediately. Mm-hmm. But it would be fun to tell on the pod about how I was exorcised the first night that I entered this apartment in Pittsburgh.
Fuck yeah. Can't wait to hear this. And you all will have to wait.
Yeah, that could be a fun little teaser for TikTok, talking
yeah.
about, if people engage enough, we'll do the story sooner than later of me being exercised in Pittsburgh.
If we get 500 likes on this TikTok.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a fair
that's
number.
achievable. It's a fun story. It's pretty wild, actually. Very wild. Can you imagine, like, white 21-year-old Lutheran showing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to the whole new surroundings with like 5 new people and then just immediately being exercised?
Fuck yeah. I can't wait to hear this.
I did talk about in one of the episodes of coming back to this story when we did talk about religion of during my last stint with my contract, the pastor that ran the church that we lived at, he was a really lovely man. I really did like him a lot, and he was really wonderful. And anyone who put up with me in that era of time, honestly, is a saint, because I was just trying to 21-year-old trying to figure out who the hell I am in general.
Yeah.
But then also trying to come to terms with my sexuality, also just trying to be a good person, but also not a good person at the same point. And just like, there was a lot of confusing times. So I, and I'm always the type, even to this day, to like push boundaries and see what I can get away with, and also love to get a reaction out of people. But I remember sitting in a meeting because we had to do like weekly check-ins with him, and just like he'd be like, "How are you doing?" and like, "What are you up to?" And it was one of my last ones, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna go full throttle for it because that's like my way to life. I love to just go for it."
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, I was like, "Was there dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden?" And he just like shook his head at me, and he didn't really have a great response for that. But the best one was, I asked him, I said, "Okay, so if we're talking about the Bible and like understanding how like God created man," which I have a whole other thing about, like the story of Cain and Abel, and like how, Cain killed Abel and they sent him off to this land where then he met his wife. But like, if Cain and Abel were the son of Adam and Eve, who were the original two, were they just like
the third, where'd the woman come from?
Yeah, and like where these people come from, and were they just like reproducing like wildly, and then he had sex with his sister?
You know what? No, he fucked a monkey. That's how we loop evolution back into it.
Is that it?
He fucked a very people-like monkey.
Okay, well that's.
I'm just saying that this is me throwing stuff at the wall.
I don't remember this in Genesis, but let me go back and reread that because it's been a while. That could have been in there.
Well, it's actually not in Genesis. It's in Dolly Parton Curtains 5:12:24.
Cool. Anyways, but I asked, explain cavemen then. And this is what he said.
Oh,
this is a true story. He said that cavemen were a thing before Adam and Eve, but they didn't have souls, so therefore they weren't human.
huh.
Interesting? Question mark? Tell us your thoughts.
Oh.
And I, for a second, was kind of like, that's cunty.
I love a man who talks out of his ass,
Like, he really just did that.
He just
like,
went for it.
Yeah. Which just, like, makes me think of, like, the gun store with, like, the dinosaurs with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's that huge arc, I think it's in Missouri, where, like, the guy built, like, a life-size version of it, but there's dinosaurs in it. It's, like, wild. What people like that will choose, and this is, I know is not Christians for 90% of them. It's a very small sect of people that just wildly choose to believe what they want to believe.
Who are still young Earth creationists and are just trying to make
everything
work.
make sense, which I just like, I love and like kind of respect, and just like I'm like work,
There's something to be said about the tenacity and the gumption to so fervently hold on to that specific belief.
Yeah, cavemen, soulless creatures.
Hell yeah.
So I'm into it. I want to know your thoughts on that. Please
email us.
Small Town Big
Gays.
Yeah.
Comment on social media, STBG Pod.
We need more engagement from our listeners, because I know people are listening, and because you're texting us individually and telling us these things, but we would love for you to actually comment them.
Please don't text us if you have our personal number. Please do not text us anymore. Please just comment, and it's appreciated.
Yes. We could probably go on for hours about this
We
subject.
probably could.
But we should stop for today
I think we should stop for today.
and
So,
talk about it again at Christmas.
yeah.
When we celebrate the birth of Jesus.
The birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode. So thanks to everyone for listening to Small Town Big Gays. You can email us, send us your fun grinder stories or sniffy stories or scruff stories or whatever. We want to start a segment called Ask Chloe or Dear Chloe.
Yeah.
Where you ask for advice from Chloe Wold, Travis's drag persona. So send us questions on our social media, email us smalltownbiggays@gmail.com, STBG pod on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. I think I have really sound advice to give to the community.
I think you have awful advice to give to the community that will be very, very funny. And I'm going to put a disclaimer that it's not actual advice.
And I'm going to disclaim that disclaimer saying it is actual advice.
Perfect.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
It's been nice to fall asleep again.